Let me set the scene for you. It was one of those muggy New York afternoons where the subway reeks of hot metal and regret. I was just trying to get home, minding my business like any normal guy. My name's Marcus, by the way, 32 years old, corporate professional with a love for jazz and a strong dislike for drama. Little did I know, today would serve me an extra large helping of bullshit. I was stepping off the train, scrolling through my mental to-do list, laundry, dinner, maybe catch a rerun of that old detective show, when I spotted him. Standing by the turnstiles with his arms crossed and an attitude screaming, "I own this joint," was a white cop. Bald head, sunglasses indoors, classic intimidation vibes. His badge glinted under the flickering fluorescent light like it had a chip on its shoulder. Now, let's be real, I'm used to the side eyes and microaggressions that come with existing while black. But this guy, oh, he wasn't settling for subtle. His eyes locked on me like I was a walking felony. "Hey, you," he barked, the kind of tone that makes heads turn and the stomachs clench. I glanced around just to be sure. Nope, no one else was in his crosshairs. Lucky me. "Yeah, you with the tie, step over here," he ordered, pointing at me like I was a stray dog who'd just peed on his lawn. Now I could feel the heat rising in my face, but I played it cool. "Is there a problem, officer?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Not confrontational, but not apologetic either. "Let me see some ID," he demanded, his hand resting just a little too close to his belt. You know, that part of the belt. "Here's the thing. I didn't do anything wrong. Not even jaywalking or sneaking a sip of water on the train." So I asked, "On what grounds?" That was apparently the wrong move because his face twisted like I just insulted his mother. "You asking questions now? Let me make it simple for you. Show me your ID or I'll make this harder than it needs to be." At this point, a few commuters started to slow down, curious to see how this would play out. Phones came out, cameras ready. Nothing screams 2024 like strangers recording your potential arrest. "Look," I said, trying to stay calm, "I'm just trying to get home. I haven't done anything. So why don't we skip this little performance?" But no, Officer Sunglasses wasn't about to let this go. He stepped closer, and for a moment I could smell the coffee on his breath, burnt and bitter. Fitting. "Don't get smart with me, pal," he growled, grabbing my arm. "Now let me tell you, there's a very specific kind of humiliation that comes with being treated like a criminal in public when you know you're innocent. It burns. And not just in your chest, it burns in your soul." The crowd started to murmur. "What's he done?" someone asked. Another person shouted, "Leave him alone." But the cop was laser focused on me. I clenched my jaw and said, "Fine, let's do this your way." I handed over my ID, my hand steady even though my heart was pounding like a bass drum. He snatched it, squinted at it like it was written in hieroglyphics and grunted. "Come with me," he ordered. By now, the phones were aimed squarely at us. I could almost hear the social media captions writing themselves. "Another day, another black man harassed." I sighed, glancing at the small crowd. A part of me wanted to make a scene, but another part knew that playing it cool was my best option, for now. So I let him lead me outside, his grip on my arm firm enough to sting, but loose enough to keep plausible deniability. And that's when I realized. This wasn't going to be a simple misunderstanding. Oh no, this guy had an agenda. And something told me I was about to find out just how far he was willing to take it. So there I was, sitting in the back of a police cruiser like some two-bit punk who just got caught tagging a wall. The windows were dirty, and the seats smelled like old coffee and bad decisions. The cop, Officer Sunglasses, yeah, I never caught his name, was up front, tapping away on his laptop. He was acting like he was cracking the case of the century. Meanwhile, I was wondering if I'd make it home before my leftover lasagna got cold. "All right, pal," he finally said, spinning around in his seat. Lawrence, let's see what you've been up to." I couldn't help myself. What I've been up to? Dude, I've been up to surviving rush hour on the F train. Not exactly the crime of the century. He didn't like that. His jaw tightened, and for a second I thought he might actually pop a blood vessel. "Keep it up, smart guy. We'll see how funny you are when I run your info." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "Sure thing, officer. Knock yourself out." He turned back to his screen, muttering something about mouthy perps. I sat there, watching the city buzz by through the grimy windows, my mind running through every possible way this could go sideways. And let me tell you, the list was long. A few minutes passed, and then it happened. The vibe in the car shifted. You ever see someone realize they've just stepped in it, but they're trying to act like everything's fine? That was him. He squinted at the screen, scratched his head, and then started typing like his life depended on it. "What's the matter, officer?" I asked, my tone sweet enough to rot teeth. "Computer acting up?" He shot me a look over his shoulder. "Shut your mouth." Touchy, I said, smirking. Must be some serious stuff you're digging up on me. What is it, unpaid parking tickets? Did I jaywalk in 1999? He ignored me, his fingers flying over the keyboard, but I could see the sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Something wasn't adding up, and he knew it. Finally, he slammed the laptop shut and grabbed his radio. Dispatch, I need a secondary ID check on a Marcus Lawrence, DOB June 23, 1991. I'm getting an error code on the system. I raised an eyebrow. Error code? That doesn't sound good. Maybe you need to call IT. Don't push it, he snapped, clearly rattled. Dispatch came back a moment later, their voice crackling through the speaker. Officer Peterson, we're showing restricted access on that individual. You're going to need to escalate this up the chain. Now, I'm not going to lie, hearing that felt good. Real good. But I played it cool, leaning forward slightly. Huh. That's weird, isn't it? Restricted access. Almost like you're messing with the wrong guy. He whipped around, his face a mix of confusion and anger. What the hell kind of stunt are you pulling? I tilted my head, giving him my best "are you serious" look. You tell me, officer. I'm just a guy trying to get home. You're the one dragging me through this dog and pony show. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. We're going to the station. This isn't over. Oh, it was far from over. But not in the way he thought. As he threw the car into gear and pulled out into traffic, I leaned back, letting a slow smile spread across my face. If this guy thought he was in control, he was about to get the wake-up call of his life. And trust me, I couldn't wait to see the look on his face when reality smacked him upside the head. The station was a dump. Flickering lights, sticky floors, and the faint smell of despair. Peterson dragged me in like he was delivering some master criminal, barking at the desk clerk to run this ID again. The clerk, a tired-looking guy with an 80s mustache, barely cared. If it's restricted, it's above your pay grade, he mumbled, already annoyed. But Peterson wasn't letting it go. Run it anyway, he snapped, practically foaming at the mouth. The guy sighed, punched in my info, and froze. His face shifted from boredom to oh shit mode faster than you could blink. Peterson? He whispered, pointing at the screen. Peterson leaned in, and whatever he saw drained the blood from his face. What the hell? He muttered. I couldn't resist. Trouble in paradise, officer? Before he could answer, his radio crackled. A calm, authoritative voice came through. Officer Peterson, stand down immediately. You are detaining a federal agent. Await further instructions. Silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Peterson stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. What? I stood up, straightened my tie, and pulled out my CIA badge. Marcus Lawrence, Central Intelligence Agency. Maybe next time don't judge a guy by his tie. Peterson stammered something about not knowing, but I shut him down. You profiled me and now you're in deep. Own it. Right on cue, a DOJ agent walked in, flashed his badge, and told Peterson, "Step outside, we need to talk." Peterson followed him out, looking like a kid caught stealing candy. I grabbed my ID, nodded at the desk clerk, and said, "Tell your buddy to work on his manners. He'll need them." And just like that, I walked out, leaving Peterson to stew in his well-earned humiliation. Stepping out of that station felt like the first breath of fresh air after being trapped in a smoky bar. I adjusted my tie, squared my shoulders, and glanced at the small crowd outside. News travels fast. Half the block had their phones out, ready to see the big bad cop get what was coming to him. But Peterson wasn't off the hook yet. The door behind me slammed open, and out he came, flanked by the DOJ agent, who looked like he'd just been served cold coffee with no sugar. Peterson's face? A masterpiece of panic and frustration. If regret was a cologne, he was drowning in it. "Officer Peterson," the agent said loud enough for the world to hear, "you're officially relieved of duty pending investigation. Hand over your badge and firearm." Peterson froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "You can't be serious. I didn't know who he was." "Not knowing isn't an excuse," I said, stepping closer. "Your job isn't to guess who deserves respect, it's to give it to everyone. You failed." The crowd murmured, some clapped, a few shouted, "About time." Peterson handed over his badge with shaking hands, glaring at me like I was the one who ruined his life. I gave him a polite smile. "Hey, don't look at me," I said, my tone dripping with mock sympathy. "You did this all by yourself." The DOJ agent turned to me, his expression softening. "Agent Lawrence, we apologize for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience?" I shot back, raising an eyebrow. "That guy dragged me halfway across the city in cuffs because he thought my skin color made me a suspect. You might want to rethink your definition of inconvenience." The agent nodded, clearly uncomfortable. "You'll have our full cooperation moving forward." "Damn right, I will," I said, brushing past him. As I walked away, I couldn't help but glance back. Peterson stood there, shoulders slumped, watching as his career unraveled in real time. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone he'd ever treated the same way. Maybe now he'd think twice, or maybe not. Either way, his badge was gone, and that was a win. I turned the corner, pulled out my phone, and called my boss. "Yeah, it's handled," I said, grinning. "You owe me dinner for this one, and make it steak." Hanging up, I couldn't help but chuckle. Peterson thought he was in control, but the second he messed with me, his game was over. And let's be real, there's nothing sweeter than watching karma do its thing.